Before we get into this video, the actual real video, I just want to say that I was very sick. I still am sick, but if I sound extremely congested and like I'm struggling for my life to breathe, it's because I was. This video has taken a week to record and edit. I kept cutting in my very sick, very congested state and making new statements. So just bear with the sound, please. I had to really hike my sound up for you to even be able to hear me because I was just so congested, which meant that I then had to bring all the volume up. So turn your volume down now. This is your warning. And let's get into the video. I did not originally have a real consideration about speaking at the beginning of this video, but I do want to. Number one, because I want to issue a trigger warning. This video is highly triggering. And number two, because I want to be clear on my stance. I tend to be very focused on the point that I'm trying to make in these edited videos. And because it is not a banter, it's a pre-recorded video, there's not an opportunity for you guys to ask me questions and for me to respond as when I do a live. So I want to say this. Growing up in San Francisco, one of my favorite things about the city was that, and if you didn't grow up in a major city, then you won't know what I mean. But growing up in San Francisco, there's Japantown and there's Chinatown and there's Little Italy. And then there was the Castro and then there was the Mission District and then there was the Avenues and so on and so forth, right? Hunters Point, downtown, the financial district. So all of these were areas where the things that went on them and the demographics that were in them were super specific. So everybody knows the Castro, it's where the gays were, right? The Haight, that was where the hippies were. The Mission District was where the Latinos were. The Avenues were where a lot of the families were. It was also when you wanted to go out to Golden Gate Park, things like that. Fisherman's Wharf, it was really water culture and where you'd find the fishermen and where you'd find the tourists. Chinatown was where you'd find the Chinamen, right? Japantown, same thing. What I loved about the Bay is that it was like you could go and get a taste of each culture. It was like walking into a whole new city. And in the city particularly, and the city is what those of us from the Bay Area call San Francisco. In the city, sometimes after, many, many years of being established, many generations, there would be grand entries into the city. So you knew when you were going into Japantown. You knew when you were going into Chinatown, right? You knew when you entered Little Italy. They had the flags up. Chinatown has this big grand entrance. So does Japantown. It was just so great. Castro would have their flags, all of these things. And you would hear all the different languages being spoken. I'm telling you, I can call a lot of languages out just by hearing them because I grew up hearing so many different types of people speak. I always say that racism wasn't a thing that I experienced in that environment. Classism, definitely, but not really racism. I was much older in my 20s before I experienced anything I could clock as racism, and I was not in San Francisco. I wasn't even in California. So I value that experience. I think that is one of the beautiful things about America. I really, really do. But I also like going out to Amish country. And I think sometimes when you live really isolated, when you go into a place that is super homogenous, whether it be a neighborhood or an area, and they have their own deep culture, and you can kind of get immersed in that, it's so cool. America is such a big country. Our country swallows the world, right? Our singular country swallows the world. I mean, what? China is a big country, but like how many of them are there out there? We're one of the biggest countries in the world. Land mass wise, we are huge, ginormous. And the great thing about America is no part of America is the same. The culture of California, whether you're a Chinaman in California or a farmer in California, because people forget that we have pot farmers and like real farmers growing real food in California. Like there are country folk in California. The country folk from California are very different from the ones in Texas, right? People from Florida are totally different from the ones in New York, depending on which of the 5 boroughs you are in New York. The people from Manhattan are nothing like the people in Brooklyn. It is what makes America amazing. We are a melting pot, but I feel like we're more like a stew. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we are more like a stew where a bunch of things, like, you know, when you grab we're not a melting pot, because a melting pot, everything kind of blurs together. We're more like a stew where you take a spoonful out and you can clearly see the potato, you can clearly see the mushrooms, you can clearly see the beef. But they're all boiling in a broth where each item in that stew has contributed something that's making that savory broth, and all together it's good. It's good individually, and then the broth, which is kind of like the melting pot part, the broth is delicious as well.
I want to make a final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to be respectful to all the people behind you in line, but I want to make this point about immigration, okay? If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened over those 40 years? The many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture.
I do not want to create an America where we all think the same, are the same, where we lose all of that culture, where you can't go into Low Country and see the ring dancers and the women shouting, where you can't go into Louisiana and be immersed in that culture, where you can't go to Alaska and have an experience that is uniquely Alaska, go to Hawaii and have an experience that is built because of those native Hawaiian peoples. That's not what I want. I need to say this because this will be a triggering video. However, for those of you who are immigrants, who are naturalized citizens, or who are the children of immigrants, I'll ask you one question. Why did you come here? Why did you come to America? What lacked in your country that brought you here? And please don't say nothing lacked, because I don't want to leave America. I love America. If I'm bothered with one state, I can move to another state and have a whole new experience. Americans don't leave en masse because America is a great country. Call that my indoctrination from school. Call it what you want. America is a great country. For all of our problems, for all of our infighting, America is great. It is a wonderful place to live. It is one of the best places to live on the planet. Why did you come here? If you truly love this country, if you truly want to have your children's children's children be a part of this country, if America is not just a place for you to get gain and pass it on back to your homeland, if America is to be your home and not a home away from home, then I ask you to hear what I'm saying with the intent that it's meant. I want to preserve America. I appreciate the naturalized citizens. Those of you who are first generation, I appreciate your parents. We wouldn't have the Chinatowns, the Little Italys. We would not have the Japantowns. We would not have America and those special things without those people. However, not you if you're a naturalized citizen, and not you if you are first generation, but your children and your children's children and so forth. They will be what helps us make the broth. And the broth is the essence of America. Just like in a stew, the carrot is not the stew. The beef is not the stew. Those things separately and boiled do nothing. It is the broth that all of those ingredients create when they come together. That is the essence of America. We would not want a soup where it was overly carroty or had not enough onions. In the same way, we appreciate all of the ingredients of America, but the broth is what I know I personally feel protective over. It is not about skin color or race or any of those things, but it is the essence of America that is easily lost when somebody who is an individual ingredient starts dictating the flavor of the stew. This is the flaw with the far-right extremists, thinking white men are the end-all be-all to America. This is the flaw of the Somalis that essentially want to recreate a little Somalia. Y'all, a weird bug. What is this? Oh, sir, please get off my car. You guys, I am at my daughter's college. She's taking a midterm. She's a teenager. She's taking a midterm. We're getting very sidetracked on this video, but we'll get to the video in a second. And this crazy bug just landed on the car. It has long legs relative to its body. It looks like a beetle, almost kind of like a roach, but not quite. And it has like a crazy pattern on its back. And it's kind of transparent. It looks like it's going to hop and fly and do a bunch of things all at once, but it looks like no bug I've ever seen. And that just threw off my whole commentary. Anyway, my point is that as you listen to this very triggering video, I just want you to know that's where I stand. That is where I stand. Preserve the broth. And I think the way that we do that is that, well, you'll find out in a minute. You can let me know what you think in the comments section.
I believe that there are a lot of people of color in this country who don't think it was just lasting embers of racism, but that a lot more work had to be done, particularly given the history of the systemic racism in this country with slavery and beyond. I want to ask you about a comment that you made about white supremacy in Iowa on Friday.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner.
I, too, am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian.
It was meant to be heartwarming, a picture-perfect description of the American dream. A father, a politician, a husband, Vivek Ramaswamy standing proudly with his sons, captioned simply, "It's why we do it." But what followed was anything but family-friendly. The replies turned into a digital mob, a venomous flood of racist mockery and slurs.
Well, Indian origin Republican leader Vivek Ramaswamy is being viciously trolled as he made a long anniversary post for his wife, Dr. Apurva, taking a journey down memory lane about how they met each other, proposed, and got married. However, amid growing tensions around the H-1B visa program in the US, this post was met with a series of racist and anti-immigrant comments.
I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner.
We are unicorn. We are unicorn. We are unicorn.
Hello, you guys. As promised, this is my... I'm so sick. I'm so sorry. I'm going to try to not let my congestion be too obvious on this, but bear with me, forgive me. I am under the weather. I feel pretty good. Like, I don't feel terrible. I feel a little bit, ill, but I don't feel terrible. But it is, conversation is hard for me because I'm very congested. So if I'm swallowing a lot and, things like that, just bear with me until I recover. So, on my last Black Conservative mixtape, volume 27, I let you guys know that I'd be making this video, and I also presented a rather controversial take. And that take was that I don't believe all American citizens should be able to hold public office. And essentially, I do believe that there are statuses of citizenship, or there should be. Now, mind you, I have no control over this, but I'm gonna go ahead and put my thoughts out there anyway. Specifically, if you are a naturalized citizen, so if you are a legal immigrant from another country, so you did go through the process legally, that you come into this country and become an American citizen, that you should not be able to hold public office. And I do mean any public office, from your local school board to president, that you should not be able to hold any public office. And I do not believe their children should. So this would be an American citizen that is born in this country, but whose parents are immigrants. I do not believe they should be able to hold public office. And to take it a step further, that I think a lot of people would struggle with, I don't really believe that until that immigrant's child has had a child, so second generation, should an individual be allowed to hold public office of any kind. Editing Irene here. You can imagine my horror when Ann Coulter said,
I, too, am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian.
The thing that now I think our reasons are very different. She's definitely racist. I don't have a problem with him being Indian. I have a problem with him being a man with a non-American parent.
You've talked about your mother's experience with the citizenship test. You've also talked about having something similar for folks who graduate high school in order to vote, having a civics test similar to what your mother took.
He's proposing a constitutional amendment that would make 18 to 24-year-olds pass a civics test before they had the right to vote. It's the same test immigrants take before they become citizens. If you pass, congrats. Here's your registration form. But if you fail, you'd have to wait until your 25th birthday to vote, unless you do 6 months of military or first responder service.
So, editing Irene, cutting in again to edit on my last edit. Now, we're going to get to Vivek's father's status in this interview. But I want to stop because this really reminds me of an incident that I had when I was getting my daughter's passports recently. Now, Vivek says he talks a lot about the citizenship test that his mother took to gain her citizenship. And he thinks that something similar should be given to high school students in order for them to vote. And before I comment on what I think about that, I want to tell you about the incident that I had getting passports for my girls. Now, as you guys know, I have many children who do not have birth certificates nor social security cards. No social security number, no social security card. Now, as an American citizen, as somebody born in America, my bloodline traces back to slavery when my ancestors were forcibly brought here. So I've been an American citizen and my family have been American citizens for many, many generations. So as an American citizen, I don't have to have either of those documents, nor do my children. In fact, it was very common in the past to not have them, and I don't need those documents to get a passport. Something that was very irritating to me is that I provided everything that was required to get my child's passport. I asked for expedited service. So this is with the first girl. And I, when it got close to the day that we were supposed to fly out of the country, I went up to the local passport acceptance facility, which you can only get in there if you have a certain number of days before you travel. And the lady that was helping me was a naturalized American citizen. So strong accent, and clearly not born in this country. And she was very nasty and snooty toward me. Because there's this whole process that she has to go through to be an American. She has to have her documents. Like, she's not doing anything without her documents because she was not born here. And although it may be upsetting to her that as an American citizen, I don't have to jump through the hoops that she does as a naturalized citizen, that's because I was born here. I was born an American citizen. My families are American. My family members are American citizens. I'm not saying there are no immigrants or anything in my family, saying that my bloodline are a bloodline of Americans. And so she did not approve the passport, which could have ruined our trip. We ended up flying to Alaska, going out to Washington, D.C. Like, we kind of flew all over the country and just spent about a week traveling and shopping and enjoying ourselves. But she single-handedly ruined my daughter's Sweet 16 to Europe because she didn't want to approve the passport because she felt a way. Even though the law allows it and I had everything that I needed, she felt a way. She started asking for pictures from when she was little and this and that and the other thing. And I mean, I had it because we're American, right? I had everything. I had birth records. I had hospital records. I had everything. Baptismal certificates, family Bible. I had everything that I needed. You guys know I've made videos about this because I'm a firm believer of if you don't exercise your rights, you'll lose them. So I don't have to have any of that. As an American citizen, I don't have to have a birth certificate or a social security card. And if for no other reason than I don't have to have them, will I not get them for my children? If for no other reason, because we will lose our rights if we all just give our rights away. But I will never forget this woman is barely speaking English and denying me a passport. And being nasty, like you have to have, you have to have. I don't have to have anything. So did the passport come? Absolutely. It came literally. We got back home and it came right after that. But I say this to say that this is why he does not have an American mindset. This is just the first example. Because his mom is an immigrant and his mom had to take a test. She had to take a test because you're not from here. You didn't grow up in America. You didn't grow up going to American schools and getting American indoctrination, because that's what it is. You didn't grow up watching American media, constantly being told American was the best. From his generation, we grew up saying the Pledge of Allegiance at school. I think kids should still be saying that, right? Like, we grew up American. It would never occur to me to say that an American has to take an American history test to be the equivalent of what an immigrant who is not from this country, who came to this country as an adult woman, that an American citizen should have to take the sort of test that a person who knows nothing about America, because this is not where they're from, that we should have to go through the same process as them to have the rights that we have by virtue of simply being American. But this is the first example of where he is not Americanized. He's not Americanized. He wants Americans to have to operate like people who are not even from this country do. We have safeguards in place for immigrants who naturalize here because you're not American. You can't just get citizenship and have no connection or understanding or any foundational anything of what it means to be an American citizen. It's like a crash course in Americanism. Do you care enough to learn a crash course in Americanism, and can you pass a test? But he wants American citizens to be subjected to the same thing as people who have zero connection to this country. And this is the first example, and then we're going to get into his father, where it is very clear there is a difference, a first-generation American citizen and a citizen who is multiple generations as an American. It would never occur to most of us to say something like that. But it occurred to him because of his immigrant mother.
You've talked about your mother's experience with the citizenship test. You've also talked about having something similar for folks who graduate high school in order to vote, having a civics test similar to what your mother took. You've lately been talking on the campaign trail more about your mother than your father, and some folks have been asking questions, and I just want to be super clear. Did your father also take the citizenship test, and is your father a citizen?
He did not, and that's a choice that he has made for familial reasons.
So this is still editing, Irene. Editing on top of the edits that I've edited. But I want to say that the reason his father likely kept his Indian citizenship is that it was valuable. They are of the highest caste in the caste system of Indians.
Yeah, so the caste system in India is, in some ways, a labor organization. So there's 4 major castes, and depending on what caste you are born into, that is your prescribed way of life and the tasks you'll do in your life. And they believe in reincarnation. And the highest caste, Brahmin, which is what I was, it's about, keeping the faith. They're teachers. It's about philosophy and doing the ritual and religious rites.
So I know that we're focused on Vivek's father, but I want to just stop here because there's so much to unpack to go along with the statement I just made. Vivek's father did not denounce his citizenship for familial reasons, likely because, again, they are Brahmins, they are of the highest caste. Something else that you have to understand about this caste is that many of the members of the caste are highly racist. And at the bottom of that totem pole are people who effectively are black. I know, crazy. But I just want to take a moment before we get into the fact that he has a parent that is not even a citizen at all to talk about the caste that he comes from, because this really sheds a lot of light on a lot of his ideologies. The way he speaks in a condescending way, people have really come for him for talking badly about many aspects of the United States, which I'll get into later in this video, but also the superiority and why he's able to align himself with the Republicans, and why when they turned on him, it was such a shocker to him, because his family, they are essentially, right, of the caste that would be the far right extremists, that would be the super racists. And I'm not just saying that to be flamboyant. I mean super racist, like Brahmin priests taking little boys' heads and smashing them into walls because they don't belong in the temple. Racist. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let his own people speak on it.
And the child abuse in Bangalore, it would appear, is not just confined to the schools. A 9-year-old Dalit boy was allegedly assaulted by a temple priest as he tried to enter the Rudreshwara shrine. This incident took place in Nelamangala district on the outskirts of Bangalore city. The police has registered a case of assault. Investigations are also underway. According to the boy's mother, the 9-year-old went to offer prayers at the temple when the priest started questioning him. When he realized that the child was a Dalit, he reportedly hit his head against the wall. The child reportedly started bleeding. And
so just to be clear on what she's saying, the Dalit boy, who is of the lowest possible caste, went into the temple to offer prayer. And the Brahmin priest, who is of the same caste as Vivek, bashed his head in for his trouble. Now, I bring this up because as I talk about what the relationship is between the Brahmins and the lower castes, I want you to note that later his parents are going to say that they brought him regularly to travel to India to offer up the prayers and engage in the rituals.
And the highest caste, Brahmin, which is what I was, it's about, keeping the faith. They're teachers. It's about philosophy and doing the ritual and religious rites.
How often does Vivek visit India? What about you? I think you visited very recently. And what are Vivek's memories of India? I believe he also has visited India regularly. So what has Indian values, tradition and culture sort of taught him while growing up and, helped him pursue his dreams in America?
So one of the things is when we raise children, they're actually proud of their heritage. Mm-hmm. So he speaks Tamil fluently. We speak Tamil at home. Visits to India and the religion he has always, enjoyed, and he sees that as a discipline. Mm-hmm. And we know that he still prays in the way he does, and he enjoyed going to the temples. And when he was little, they went every year almost.
And I'm going to remind you of what the man who just explained what the caste said. He said that is the job of the Brahmins. These are things that they do. And when the parents are being interviewed, the lady's like, basically, they're being interviewed by somebody from India, and we don't understand their culture. And I think this is what I'm getting at. We don't understand their culture. When I say somebody's not Americanized, It is that Vivek grew up with constant exposure and participation deeply in a culture, the culture of his parents, that we have no understanding of. And he brings those values. And those values, I don't know that they're all values that we really would want in the United States. So going back to more examples, keep in mind that as you're hearing these examples, Vivek, his parents, and I'm going to play the clip, say that he goes back all the time to engage in the things that the Brahmin caste should engage in. He's hanging out with other Brahmins because he's a Brahmin and they are the highest possible caste. And I want you to see how interesting it is as they talk about the divide between the Brahmins and the rest of the people, the racial divides. Also notice, because Vivek loved to deny racism, that all the Brahmins don't actually think that there's a racial divide. But all of the lower caste, you know, the type of caste of the little boy who's got his head bashed in by the priest, they definitely think there's a racial divide. So you can see, first of all, the parallels, sins everywhere, but you can also see the value system that his parents have instilled in him because both of his parents are Brahmins.
And they stop mixing very much. When you look at genetic data from India, almost everybody is on a gradient of ancestry with two poles, what we call the ancestral North Indians and the ancestral South Indians, with very few exceptions. The exceptions are people with your last name, Patel.
Oh, yeah?
So what happens in India looks like a population in the process of mixture, but it froze. And the freezing happened 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and it froze because of cultural change. The cultural change happens, which locks in the caste system, and people freeze and they stop mixing very much. And so what you see is instead of people collapsing to a point, which is what you see in Europe, you see this gradient forming and it's stable. And because of the enduringness of the caste system, which is documented in early texts like the Rig Veda, you actually have a snapshot going back a couple of thousand years without this continuing.
हमेशा ये बातें उठती हैं कि रिजर्वेशन की वजह से जनरल लोगों का बड़ा नुकसान हो रहा है, इसे इकोनॉमिक बेसिस पे कर देना चाहिए, कास्ट बेसिस से हटा के मेरिट वाले पीछे रह जाते हैं. तो क्या सचमुच रिजर्वेशन को
कैसी है? हमें रिजर्वेशन इसलिए मिलना जरूरी है कि सदियों से हमारे साथ छुआछूत हुई है.
पर आपके साथ वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन तो नहीं हुआ होगा ना कि आपके हाथ से किसी ने पानी नहीं पिया होगा या आपको डिस्क्रिमिनेट किया होगा किसी और?
इसलिए क्योंकि देयर इज अ रीजन. आई एम अ ठाकुर. कुछ लोगों का एक बिलीव होता है, अगर आप देखोगे कि अगर एक झाड़ू वाला अगर आपको आके पानी देगा आप पियोगे. मेरा क्या है, अगर मुझे कोई देगा आई वोंट टेक दैट.
यही भेदभाव, यही भावना हमारे देश को इतना पीछे
चाहिए. आपको लगता है कि आज भी समाज में छुआछूत है?
बिल्कुल नहीं, 0%.
सब कह रहा है 2019 में छुआछूत खत्म हो गया.
जिसके साथ खत्म हो गया होगा, जिसके साथ नहीं होगा तो कहवे करेगा. जब किसी ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय का हम सामान लेते हैं तो जो है कि वो पैसा जमीन पर रखवा पर उस पर पानी गिराते हैं कि ये शुद्ध हो जाएगा. तो हम बोलते हैं कि सिक्का पर पानी गिराते हो मगर नोट पर क्यों नहीं गिराते?
अच्छा सवाल है आपका.
वो काम से बचना चाहते हैं.
तो जो लोग रिजर्वेशन मांग रहे हैं वो काम नहीं करना चाहते एक्चुअली.
यस, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. वो उस सोसाइटी में नहीं जाना चाहते ना जहाँ वर्क करना पड़े.
काम कभी उन्होंने किया नहीं है. उन्होंने तो मंदिर में घंटा बजाया, हमारे को बेवकूफ बनाया है. उन लोगों को क्या पता बराबरी करने का, मेहनत करने का. मेहनत तो हमारे लोगों को पूछो ना, जो कहते हैं ना इनके पसीने से बदबू आती है. एक दिन गड्ढर में उतर के देखिए ब्राह्मण का बेटा जो पुजारी पूजा मंदिर में.
पंडितों को है
जो ज्ञान है वो आपने बताया वो ब्राह्मणों का ही है.
ब्राह्मणों का ज्ञान अर्जन धर्म है.
ज्ञान पे ब्राह्मणों का ही हक है.
और जो है शूद्रों को सेवा करना ऐसे बताया.
तो मतलब जिसका जो काम है उसको वही करना चाहिए.
अरे बेवकूफ इंसान, 3 से 5% तुम्हारी आबादी है. अगर मैं शिक्षा तुम ही प्राप्त करोगे तो इस देश की साक्षरता केवल 5% हुई ना. हमारा देश
स्ट्रॉन्ग होती है. नहीं, फाइनेंशियल हालत अगर स्ट्रॉन्ग भी हो गई किसी की तो क्या डिस्क्रिमिनेशन उसके साथ होता है या नहीं?
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है.
क्यों नहीं होता?
क्यों नहीं होता? राष्ट्रपति के साथ हुआ है. रामनाथ कोविंद जी गए, सीढ़ियों पे बैठा के पूजा करवाई उनके साथ.
चलो कह रहे थे उनकी वाइफ के पैर में दर्द था इसीलिए ऊपर नहीं चढ़ पाए.
देखो साहब, ऐसा है, अपनी खाल बचाने के लिए कुछ भी कह सकते हैं. आपको भी पता है, अभी कुछ दिनों पहले की बात है जब जीतन राम मांझी मुख्यमंत्री थे, वो एक मंदिर में गए, उस मंदिर को भी उन्होंने धोया. घुसने दिया जाता है.
बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि आज भी लोगों को मंदिर में नहीं घुसने दिया जा रहा है, घोड़ी पे बारात नहीं जा सकती उनकी.
इन छोटी मोटी घटनाओं को जो भी व्यक्ति प्रमुखता देते हैं उनका निश्चित तौर पर वो भारत विरोधी लोग हैं. वो नहीं चाहते हैं कि भारत आगे बढ़े.
जो लोग रिजर्वेशन का पक्ष ले रहे हैं वो लोग भारत विरोधी.
You guys, I'm trying to let this play, but when I tell you sin will sin wherever it is, are you listening to these people? If you are having trouble with this, I advise that you rewind and reread everything these people are saying. Does this not sound familiar to you? Now, mind you, going back to Vivek, these people are 3 to 5% of the population in India. These are the caste that he and his parents are from. They regularly went back to India basically pretty much every year of his childhood to practice the rites and engage in the activities that the Brahmin engage in. It's no wonder his father did not want to become an American citizen to hold that tie. But just wow, you guys. Wow. Right down to this man talking about if you bring it up that they shouldn't be engaging in this, they're being anti-Indian. Now tell me, who does it sound like when you say, when you bring up discrimination, that everybody's denying even exists? There is no systemic discrimination going on. And if you bring it up, you're anti your country. I promise you, sin is going to sin in every language, on every continent, all over the world. And Vivek's parents, they say it. They say his views and his ideologies best aligned with the Republicans, which is why he chose to be on the Republican side of things. But what are those values? Those values are the values we are hearing expounded upon here by the Brahmins of the culture. And it's no wonder, coming from that 3 to 5% top hierarchy caste system, going back every year, having 2 parents that grew up in that were privileged to that, teaching you the ways, that Vivek is the way that he has been. When he said, I don't know any racists.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner.
He was saying the same thing as the guy. When you're at the top of the food chain and you are the racist, you don't see any racism.
घुसने दिया जाता है। बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि आज भी लोगों को मंदिर में नहीं घुसने दिया जा रहा है, घोड़ी पे बारात नहीं जा सकती उनकी।
इन छोटी मोटी घटनाओं को जो भी व्यक्ति प्रमुखता देते हैं, उनका निश्चित तौर पर वो भारत विरोधी लोग हैं, वो नहीं चाहते हैं कि भारत आगे बढ़े।
जो लोग रिजर्वेशन का पक्ष ले रहे हैं वो लोग भारत विरोधी चाहिए। आपको लगता है कि आज भी समाज में छुआछूत है?
बिल्कुल नहीं। बदल देती है,
ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है आज के टाइम में, क्योंकि मैं न्यूज़ भी देखता हूँ, ऐसा माहौल नहीं है।
न्यूज़ में तो सब अब सही हो गया है।
जो चमार था वो
ब्राह्मण हर चीज को तथ्य के आधार पे ही बोलता है। शहर में देखिए छुआछूत।
And I reject the narrative of systemic racism because I think it is a fake, made-up concept.
You think it's all made up. And he brought that same mentality to his presidential race. But you know what the problem is? That these white people don't recognize the Brahmins as their equal. That is the problem. And that he is not at the top of the food chain. He and his parents and the Brahmins are not at the top of the food chain in the United States. So he greatly miscalculated his positioning based on the experiences he had, again, because he's not Americanized. This goes why I say the second generation. I know that it seems harsh, but it's because, and this is just one culture. Imagine all the others. Anyway, let's get to his parents talking about why he chose the Republican Party.
We believe he's seeking a Republican Party's nomination. So what attracted him to the Republican Party?
Yes, the way you probably are familiar with some of the system here, which is different from India, that there basically is a two-party system, Democratic or Republicans. And within each party, there are different views. So that's a separate story. But it's a two-party system, so he has to go with either Democrat or Republican. And then he's aligned his thinking currently with the Republican side. So he has got a lot more traction for his views from the Republicans. So for that reason, he's going with them.
Again, I'm bringing all these points up because Do we understand the culture of a person like this? Do we know how deep that goes? We have a lot of ground to cover, so I'm gonna just get back to what we need to get back to. But editing Irene out.
बिल्कुल
पंडित बोलते हैं कि इनको मंदिर में नहीं घुसने दो चमारों को।
तो फिर आपने कभी ट्राई किया मंदिर जाने का?
हम तो जाना ही छोड़ दिया हमने तो। जब बाहर निकाल देते हैं तो फिर कहाँ जाए बताओ?
क्या बोलते हैं आपको?
यह बोलते हैं चमारों का मंदिर नहीं है चमार।
A 9-year-old Dalit boy was allegedly assaulted by a temple priest as he tried to enter the Rudreshwara shrine. According to the boy's mother, the 9-year-old went to offer prayers at the temple when the priest started questioning him. When he realized that the child was a Dalit, he reportedly hit his head against the wall. The child reportedly started bleeding and
को नहीं घुसने देंगे।
हर गांव में एक शंकर जी का मंदिर है, दुर्गा जी का मंदिर है, काली जी का मंदिर है, जंगल पहाड़ पर है। एक हमारा भभुआ कैमूर जिला में विजय शंकर फकीर का मंदिर हम कई वर्ष से बनाते हैं लेकिन नहीं बनने देता है।
टोटल समाप्त है।
शहर में तो हम वो छुआछूत किया है, हम लोग आदी हो गए हैं जो बगैर कहे हम लोगों के साथ की जाती है। किसी को हम बताते हैं कि हम वाल्मीकि हैं तो लोग हमसे बात करने का तरीका।
एक ब्राह्मण के यहाँ मैं काम करने जाता हूँ, मैंने कहा पानी पीना है, हालांकि मेरे को पानी की प्यास नहीं थी, लेकिन उसकी घरवाली पानी लेके आती है, गिलास के अंदर वो टूटी का पानी था। मैं कहा जानवर भी ऐसा पानी नहीं पीते। पंडित जी आप इंसानों के साथ ये काम।
आरक्षण आया है,
ये 21वीं सदी चल रही है। 21वीं सदी के भारत का निर्माण करना है। आज
तो सर इस 21वीं सदी में छुआछूत होती है?
नहीं, ये छुआछूत मेरे हिसाब से तो कहीं नहीं होती है।
हाथ छिप गया तो दंगा हो जाता है, लड़ाई हो जाती है।
मतलब आपका हाथ किसी और में टच हो गया तो दंगा हो जाएगा।
टच हो गया तो मारने पीटने के लिए लोग भाग आ गए।
आरक्षण अब हटना चाहिए।
जातिवाद खत्म कर दीजिए, आरक्षण खत्म करिए।
जब तक ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है सोसाइटी में, दबे हुए समाज को उसका रिप्रेजेंटेशन अश्योर करने के लिए रिजर्वेशन जरूरी है। तो बजाय इसके कि हम ये बात करें कि रिजर्वेशन कब हटेगा, हमें ये डिस्कस करना चाहिए कि सोसाइटी से हम इस डिस्क्रिमिनेशन को कैसे जल्द से जल्द हटाएं।
So you really cannot make this up. The devil has no new tricks. You cannot make this up. For those of you who don't know, because again, remember, one of the reasons I have the feelings I do about when people should be able to hold public office is because we can't even fathom all of the cultures that are in the world, right? We can't fathom it. We just talked the other day about how in Somalian society, in Somalia, marrying children as young as 9 and consummating those marriages with old men, not that any age man would be okay, is normal. So then when you have a whole city that is run by first and like naturalized and first generation Somalians, they are bringing their culture with them, right? Same thing here. This just cracks me up because not the reservation system in India, which if you don't know what the reservation system is, it is a kind of affirmative action. So all the upper castes, all the Brahmin castes, the Brahmins, same as Vivek, are like, we got to end the reservation system. There's no discrimination. There's no problems. It's the 21st century. We don't engage in the caste system. We don't treat people differently based on their caste, blah, 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 blah. Right? I mean, they engage in the caste system, but we don't discriminate based on the caste system or anything like that. And mind you, the guy said these castes are so separated that they literally have totally different genetics. That's how little they intermingle. Totally different genetics from each other. Meanwhile, the people that are being discriminated against are like, what are you talking about? They're throwing water on our money and beating us up for going into the temple and all of these things. And the Brahmins, again, Vivek's caste, want to abolish the reservation system. They are upset about the reservation system. Now, what does that remind you of? What does that remind you of? And now you're starting to see why Vivek chose the Republicans. Why he chose to stand with the Republicans. Vivek was like, I know all about this life. We're all in agreement. Mistakenly, but all in agreement. Anyway, editing Irene out, let's get back to the real commentary. They were also quite successful in India. As with most legal, naturalized citizens who start the process legally and finish the process legally, they tend to have money. They don't tend to be from the drudges of their society. They tend to be educated. They tend to have money, all of those things. That's how they are able to come here. Which is why when he lied and, said that he was of humble beginnings, he was easily called out. But we'll get to that later.
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother, when did your mom take the citizenship test? Was it before or after you were born?
After I was born.
After you were born. Okay.
After years of being in this, following the legal process of becoming a naturalized citizen, she followed it through the legal process. And
so
I think
you
that,
you gained citizenship through birthright then?
Well, but you gain citizenship through birthright citizenship in that sense too, right? I mean, every American. So what I want to do is revive a vision of citizenship where every kid who enjoys.
I'm sorry, just to backtrack. So your father is not a citizen.
They came to this country legally. They were in this country legally. So my view is any kid who is born in this country of parents who are here legally, that's the scope of where birthright citizenship applies. And I think it's a very simple principle. The 14th Amendment says, subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof.
And this is the problem with birthright citizenship, because I promise you, at the end of every single rabbit hole are Black people. Every time, the lack of discrimination and the lack of issues that Black people have hits the table, the time where you can guarantee suddenly people will remember we exist is when they want to invoke something that has to do with American Black ancestry for their own benefit. And the 14th Amendment is just that. This was done on June 13th in 1866 and ratified in 1868. Now, this was specifically for my ancestors to make people who had been here generations, people who were forcefully brought here, to ensure that we had citizenship. And the way the 14th Amendment has just been perverted is crazy work. Crazy work. I'm going to stop with this interview. I will say she stayed on his neck. Oh my gosh, I'm so sick, you guys. She stayed on his neck. She would, he's a smooth talker and he tries to move quick. She was like, you can't move on me. Also, they were smart. They put an immigrant. She's also an immigrant. They made her do the interview. So when he thought he was going to get a little feisty, she was like, just so you know, I'm an immigrant. If you haven't seen that interview, go watch it. Go watch it in its entirety. Let's go ahead and get on with the video. Actually, wait. He said some little snooty stuff about Juneteenth as well. And I was going to leave it out this video. I was, mostly because I personally don't care for Juneteenth either. But what I care for less is that when he did it, he was specifically just doing it to pander to his audience.
Single day voting on election day. We will make election day a holiday in the United States of America, so there's no complaints about it. Cancel Juneteenth or one of the other useless ones we made up. Okay? We can't have everything be a holiday, but we'll cancel one of the other ones and make election day a holiday. Paper ballots and government-issued voter ID that matches the voter file. That is what we will do.
Going back to your election security plan, you said you wanted to have a holiday. You said maybe cancel Juneteenth or one of the other useless holidays. Do you think Juneteenth is a useless holiday?
I basically do.
He likes to invoke the 14th Amendment and our ancestors. An amendment that was made specifically for our American Black ancestors when he wants to defend his parents. But the holiday that celebrates the last of those ancestors actually becoming free, that the celebration of that he doesn't want to do. But the 14th Amendment, the thing that's attached to that, because it's all about the same story, he wants to glob all onto that when it comes to defending his parents. I'm telling you right now, This is what I'm talking. These are the shenanigans that I'm talking about. I just had to throw that in there. And not because I'm here to defend Juneteenth. I don't even celebrate Juneteenth. I'm not even gonna go into a rant about Juneteenth. I'm just saying the hypocrisy of this man. I'm black, those are my ancestors. I can tell you I think the holiday is ridiculous. But however, not the gentleman with a whole non-American parent and a naturalized American parent invoking the 14th Amendment, and then out of the same mouth going to drag Juneteenth for filth to appease a racist white audience. These are the shenanigans that I'm talking about. And now I'm starting to get a more clear picture as I'm going through like all of these clips and looking back at history. He is prone to this. It's not just the black community. He came for all of America.
Ramaswamy, the man tapped by Donald Trump to lead the new Department of Government Efficiency, along with Elon Musk, is using 90s sitcoms as an analogy for why tech companies are hiring immigrant workers. In this very long post on X, Ramaswamy said, American culture celebrates mediocrity over excellence. Here are his words. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engine.
Sir, when you do not even have an American parent and your other parent is naturalized, like you have no natural born American parents, you don't get to drag the whole country. You don't. Now, I am not supporting the language and behavior that was used against him. But you know how I said I could drag Juneteenth because I am a black American. It was my ancestors that were freed. I can feel however I want to feel about it. In America, we can criticize America. But see, I'm going to tell you what will make us patriotic real quick. If somebody who does not have those deep ties, those generational ties to America, starts to insult America, and the way the Americans, and more specifically the Republican Party, turned on Vivek when he started talking trash about Americans, I'm telling you, people started pulling out stats for intelligence in India and everything. It was a bloodbath. So in this last comment that was made in response to Vivek's dragging of all of America, they start to go into how immigrants are replacing specifically white Christian males. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm a little stuffy. Specifically white Christian males. Because, of course, white Christian males are the most intelligent people in the country. And this got me thinking about another clip that I saw coming out of India. So remember, Vivek is of the Brahmin class, which is the highest class in India. They are, for all intents and purposes, the white Christian males of India. Okay, the Brahmin class. And so I told you that they had basically a affirmative action program in India to let the lower castes into the areas that they had been excluded from, because of course the Brahmins, the white Christian males of India, would look, God bless Christians, I'm Christian, but I'm going to say white Christian males because that is exactly what far right wing Blaze Media podcaster use. Like he's specifying it. I'm going to specify it too. We know they're perverting it. We know they're perverting Christianity for racial purposes. But to make the point, the Brahmins are the equivalent. And so during this kind of affirmative action, they started complaining about the same thing, the Great Replacement. They started complaining that, the white Christian males of India, the Brahmins of India, were being replaced with the lower castes, and they were kind of protesting it. It's crazy how uniform the world is. Let's go ahead and get into that.
A major controversy has erupted in Tamil Nadu over allegations of Brahmin priests being replaced in temples. The DMK government has appointed trained aspirants, and this is from various castes, as temple priests, keeping its poor promise. And this has been hailed. Of the 208 appointees, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin handed over the appointment orders of Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Department on Saturday to 75 personnel who had completed their Archagar training. However, many raised concerns and in the social media, many questioned this move, stating that Brahmin priests are being replaced by non-Brahmin priests. Their contention is that Brahmin priests must not be replaced. BJP MP Subramanian Swamy tweeted that M.K. Stalin, just like his father M. Karunanidhi, is meddling with posting of temple priests and warned of taking this to court. Tamil Nadu Minister Shekhar Babu has countered Swamy, saying that no priests are being removed and that the DMK will not bow down to any threats.
So we're going to delve a little bit more into what this clip is talking about. But remember, it is basically affirmative action in India. I'm sorry. It's just the parallel, like I said, the devil is the devil everywhere. It is basically the affirmative action in India. And because of how that caste system is set up and the jobs that are performed, and you notice like some of the lower castes were saying like, are only the Brahmins supposed to learn? Is like everybody else supposed to be illiterate? And so one of those jobs that the highest level, which Vivek is, one of the jobs they get to be the priests. And so now they want to let lower caste members, like let those lower caste people actually participate in some of the Brahmins' jobs. And it's like the great replacement. They are not happy about this. They are not happy to see their jobs going to affirmative action individuals. And, I'm going to let one of these affirmative action hires talk. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because the universal, like sin, the devil only has so many tricks up his sleeves. And so no matter where in the world you go, the same tricks are being pulled. And again, remember Vivek regularly going to the very temples that we're talking about every single year with his parents. They're Brahmins. They're active. They participate. They've taught him the ways of being Brahmin by their own words. But this is what they're up to. But again, let the affirmative action hire, the DEI hire, okay, from the temple, tell us what's going on.
எல்லா அர்ச்சகர்களும் சமமாக எப்படி பார்ப்பாங்க அதே மாதிரி தான் பார்க்கணும். அது வரக்கூடிய பக்தர்களுக்கு பல விதமான கோரிக்கைகள் இருக்கும். பக்தர்கள் சார்பாக நம்ம இருந்து சாமிக்கு சேவை பண்ணி என்ன நம்மளால் முடியுமோ அது செய்யும். அர்ச்சகரோட பணிங்கிறது வரக்கூடிய பக்தர்களுக்கு மனநிறைவா அவங்களுக்கு செய்யக்கூடிய அர்ச்சனை பூஜைகள் வழிபாடு செஞ்சு. என்னோட பேர் டி மாரிசாமி. நான் பிசி பேக்வர்ட் கம்யூனிட்டி. அர்ச்சகரான சிறு வயசுலேருந்தே ஆன்மீகம் பூஜை கோவிலில் ஈடுபாடு உண்டு. அதன் அடிப்படையில் நான் இருந்தேன். ஆனாலும் சமூகத்தில் பிராமணர் மட்டுமே அர்ச்சகராகக்கூடிய சூழ்நிலை இருந்தது. நித்தியம் தும் சக்தித்ரயா மகாத்தாம் யோகினோ தியாகந்த்ய நித்தியம் தும் பிரம்மா தும் விஷ்ணு தும் ருத்ர தும் இந்திர தும் அக்னி. அப்போ 2006 திமுக ஆட்சி காலத்தில் இந்த மாதிரி அனைத்து சாதியின அர்ச்சகராலும் சட்டம் கொண்டு வந்தாங்க. இன்டர்வியூ அட்டன் பண்ணி அதில் இன்டர்வியூ பாஸ் ஆச்சு. எனக்கு இடம் கிடச்சி பயிற்சி பெறதுக்காக அந்த பயிற்சியில் சேர்ந்துக்கிட்டு மிச்சம் இருக்கக்கூடிய 205 பேர் 204 பேர் இருக்காங்க. அவங்களுக்கான சோர்ஸ் என்னங்கிறத இப்போ வரைக்கும் தெரியல. எங்களுக்கு அந்த அரசு பணிங்கிற வாய்ப்பு, அர்ச்சகர் பணிங்கிற வாய்ப்பு கிடைக்குமா கிடைக்காதங்கிறது கூட தெரியல. எங்களுக்கு ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு வாய்ப்பு கிடைக்கும்னு நினச்சி தான் அங்கே பயிற்சி முடித்தோம். அந்த வாய்ப்பு இப்போ வரைக்கும் கிடைக்கல. எனக்கு சமீபத்தில் கிடைச்சிது. இன்னும் யாருக்கும் கிடைக்கணுங்கிறது தான் எங்களுக்கு இல்லை. ஆனால் கோவில்களில் மட்டும் தொடர்ந்து அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு அமைப்பு இருந்துகிட்டே இருக்குது. அது காலப்போக்கில் மாறுமாங்கிறது தெரியல.
This temple at the Viluppuram district of Tamil Nadu has been at the center of controversies for the past few months. On June 7, the Viluppuram district administration sealed the Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temple located in the Melpadi village. The sealing of the temple happened because peace talks between dominant caste members and Dalits failed. The discussions were about the entry of Dalits into the temple.
So, to be clear, they're saying that the Brahmin class, the class Vivek is from, and I wouldn't be attaching him so closely to this class if he didn't carry a lot of their views. Remember, that is why he is so easily right aligned. He's so easily aligned with specifically the Republican Party because they mirror the Brahmin view in India. Now, with that said, the Brahmin priests don't even want to let the Dalits in the temple. They don't even want them to enter the temple. They don't even want them to come in there and pray. Okay, that's what this whole thing is about. I just want to slow it down because if you're not used to hearing an Indian accent, maybe you're not catching that. But yes, that is the issue.
However, an agreement could not be reached between the two groups. Hundreds of police personnel have been deployed in the area and nearby villages. In April, a few dominant caste members allegedly assaulted a youth from the scheduled caste Adi Dravida community for entering the temple during a festival.
I just want to apologize again for the way that I sound. I'm very, very congested, but this is not the same little boy who got his head bashed in from the other clip. This is another young person who was attacked by a group of priests. I just want to be clear on that. This is an older incident than the one before. And it seems like, much like in America, the young people aren't about this life anymore. The young people are done with the caste system. The young people are done with the institutionalized casteism or racism. And I want to low-key call it racism because, like the gentleman mentioned earlier, the castes have been separated for so long that genetically they are dissimilar. They are distinct genetically. That is how segregated things are. Just some food for thought. I also want to just move the conversation along. I don't think I'm going to play the rest of the story. Suffice it to say, they shut the temple down. They just locked it up. And that was their solution. We'll lock it up and then we'll all talk about it because you guys are going to have to let everybody in the temple. That was kind of where this ended. But as we know, fast forward to modern day, they're still fighting. They don't like this affirmative action thing. They don't like sharing their spaces. They don't like being told that people who would not traditionally be in their spaces, the Brahmin class, the highest caste, they don't want these people in their spaces. The temple, mind you, is a job. The Brahmins are supposed to be learned. So a lot of this is not just religion. It's that religion is so ingrained in their society that in the caste system, the religious people can only be of a certain class. They can only be of the highest caste, which is Brahmin. And there's only one small group of people, the Dalits, that are literally separated on the pyramid from this caste pyramid from everybody else. They are considered the most lowly, most horrible, most disgusting, the untouchables. They're untouchable. You heard the guy earlier say, I wouldn't even take, and this is modern day, I wouldn't even take a glass of water from these people, right? They're washing the money after they touch it. They think they're lazy. They think they're dirty. They think they don't work hard. They also deny that there's any sort of systemic problem. Does any of this sound familiar? And this is why Vivek so easily aligned, because his parents are Brahmin. He regularly traveled to India. The Brahmin value system aligns with the Republican value system. This is also why I feel like there has to be a distinction between conservatives, right, and Republicans. Republicans have a racism problem. Conservatives, we are conservative in our ideologies. We are conservative in our values, right? There's overlap in values and beliefs, But conservatives, especially Christian conservatives, not Republicans, we would be for social safety nets. We would not deny something like racism. You know what I mean? Like, there are differences. However, I would not be pro LGBTQ people adopting children, right? I would not want, drag storytime reading in a school. I would not want to see child labor. Like, there's overlap. And I think where the overlap stops is when we start hating people simply because they're not like us, right? I think that's where the overlap really stops. Now, that said, remember how important religion is. One of the reasons Vivek is not going to denounce being Brahmin specifically, and of that Brahmin class, they're the priestly, the learned class, right? Which also is why he's always talking to people like he's educating them, because they're also the teachers. So he's always talking to people like, look, you simple person, let me explain.
Well, tell me about what you know about Hinduism.
Hinduism is a polytheistic religion that...
So with due respect, I'll just cut in right there, because there's one thing I have a little bit of authority on. I'm actually a monotheist. I believe there's one true God. It's from the Vedanta tradition of Advaita philosophy. Not stuff that, we need to spend a ton of time here on, but since you asked about it, I wanted to address it. I believe there's one true God. Now, let me just ask you, because I know that may be a hard thing to process.
I don't think anybody think I planted Robert's question. We didn't plant the questions tonight. We have promised an open and candid conversation. Sometimes that makes us uncomfortable. I felt a little uncomfortable as you asked that question, but that's what you should expect of your leaders, to be able to engage with you. So let me say a couple words.
I'm going to give you my copy from today, and there's 7 articles in it. I'll ask you to just open it up real quick to Article 6, if you will, for a second. And I think it's actually, we talk about the Constitution a lot in our country, and I love that. One of the things I love about it is it actually makes sense to read the Constitution from time to time. It's a good thing to actually read.
So in theory, I don't disagree with him. First of all, the young man that was challenging him, who could not even pronounce the word polytheistic, I think, he seemed a little confused. And we should read our Constitution from time to time. You guys know I'm big on that. I've encouraged you guys to read the Social Security, like the actual Social Security Act and all of the court cases that led up to it. I think we should have an understanding of our government, all of this. However, it is the condescending way. And here's, to be clear, this is how his caste speaks. This is how the Brahmins speak, because they are the highest caste. Even when he was like, you should expect this of your leaders, that that we're willing to engage with you, right? This attitude is because he is a Brahmin. And this kind of goes back to what I'm saying is, we interpret the actions of others based on our culture in America, based on American culture. But the thing that we have to look at is, what is the culture of the person? And so the Brahmin caste, as you've been watching for this past hour, has a very particular way of operating. And that is the place that he operates from, a place of superiority. Like, I am your leader. The Brahmins are the leaders. They are the highest caste in India. I think he really thinks he's doing something when he's like, you should expect us to be able to engage you. Like, I'm willing to have this conversation. That is a privilege. A Brahmin being willing to engage and have a conversation and get a lower caste to understand something would be a privilege. So his approach to this, and I think that is what we underestimate when we don't have shared culture, is we interpret the language and the behavior through our cultural lens. However, we have to interpret the language and the behavior and the actions from the cultural lens of the person who is speaking. And this comes into why I say you need to be fully Americanized to hold public office, because we're not even speaking the same language. And most Americans are going to be ignorant of other cultures because we have the privilege of having that ignorance. But that ignorance does not translate well when you're putting people into public office. It's also deceptive. It's deceptive because they hate Christians. They hate Christians. Now, I do not like being put in a position where it even seems like I'm trying to defend Catholics, because no, I'm not at all. I could do a whole thing on the Catholics, but I won't do that right now. However, regardless of Catholic or Protestant, they have a major issue with Christians.
His IQ is 169.
So this idea that his IQ is, what did he say, 164 or 168 is insanity. And this kind of goes to what Vivek was saying, and I was talking about early in the video, that made everybody turn against him when he was basically speaking on how mediocre Americans are, and how if we valued, I'm going to say it much nicer than he did, education better instead of upholding dumb people, that that we'd be a better country. All of those things are hilarious. And I could do what racist Republicans did, which was pull up the most disgusting statistic against India to kind of make it seem like they're all semi-morons over there, but that is not realistic. I will pull up a much more fair stat. And, the United States average IQ is 99.74, right? 99.74. That is our average IQ. We rank 30th in the world for IQ. India ranks 44th in the world for IQ, with an average IQ of 99.08. Now, am I going to make, a huge stink over basically a point difference in IQ? No, but 168. So mind you, this is all about them trying to get their child into a Christian school. They're saying our child's IQ is 168. And of course, the Christian, who in this case is some kind of Orthodox, Christian or Catholic, one or the other, is pushing conversion on them in exchange for free school. That it's not a heart issue, that they're basically blackmailing lower caste but intelligent Indian people to convert to Christianity with the carrot of school. So to be clear on what we're looking at, but I just had to call out the 168 IQ thing, because this is obviously propaganda from India. Again, when you don't know the culture, then we take things at their face. But Vivek has been reared under this propaganda. So that's why he was so comfortable basically dragging America like there was such a huge difference between his parents' country and the United States, intelligence-wise, when honestly there really isn't. Even though we always say, and we have in our minds as Americans, a stereotype that Asians are so intelligent, and this includes people from India, and I think some of those children are pushed, but no more so than here in the United States. You have some families that heavily push intelligence, and that drives the average IQ rate up, apparently up higher than India's. But again, I'm not going to make a big deal over the 1 point. I'm just going to say that I want to point out the propaganda. Like, his IQ is 168. Like, really, your child is a genius? Is this what we're saying? Your child's a genius. That's how the average India gets converted, is they bring their genius kid into a Christian school, and we say, if you want your kid to go to this school, your genius child to go to the school, you must convert. So obviously this is a propaganda piece, and I'm going to back up that it's a propaganda piece with an actual troop that goes around India trying to get Christians to denounce their faith.
आपके रट्टमार सिलेबस से बहुत एडवांस जा चुका है वो इस जोन अनदर लेवल.
Yes, Mr. Mani. Jesus has given Adi a great mind. Praise the Lord.
ये तो सब माँ मीनाक्षी की कृपा है. जब आदि पेट में था ना, तब मैं नंगे पाँव चल के गणेश मंदिर भी गई थी.
Do you believe in Christ, Mr. Mani?
I love Christ.
Christ loves you too, Mr. Mani. But if you and Adi accept him formally, then as per the policy of the school for financially backward Christians, Adi could get a special scholarship. In fact, I could promote him directly to the 9th standard.
Sometimes back in India, there's a saying that, if someone has accepted Christ, they call it conversion.
And they say there's so much of hatred speech, like people get converted because they've lacked love, or because they've lacked family, or because they've lacked finances, and they come into Christ just for benefits of financial stability, or benefits, some kind of benefits.
Obviously, there's no compulsion. We never compel. You can check with your friend, Mr. Satish Makwana, Sally's father. You could check with him how much benefit Sally has got ever since his family accepted Christ. If you don't mind me being so bold, I must tell you, I really feel for the people of your community, Mr. Mani. No, Mr. Acharya is a respected and senior member of the community, but he is a Brahmin. And don't mind me saying, but he never provided a written recommendation for your son.
ये देखिए, तब से विवेकानंद स्कूल वालों ने फोन करके नाक में दम कर दिया। 4 इंटरव्यू लास्ट 3 मंथ से, ठीक है? तो लोग ऑफर कर रहे हैं फ्री एडमिशन, बुक्स।
No, Mr. Mani. Don't fall for that trap. We will give you free books and we will add on free transport.
वो तो स्कॉलरशिप भी दे रहे हैं, और उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आप गणेश जी की पूजा करते हैं या क्राइस्ट की।
So notice they call on the rift between the Brahmin class, the leading class, and the Dalits, the untouchables, and they say that Christians weaponize that. In addition to that, they also are claiming, although why would they be at the Christian school if they were already offered, all the things? It makes no sense. Then they go on to say, well, they don't care if we worship or if we pray to Ganesh or Christ. But here's the thing, they do care. And I'm going to show you that they care because they're running around India trying to get people to convert and denounce their Christianity. So this idea that they don't care is untrue. I also think it's really interesting that they say, yes, I believe in Christ, but at the same time, they're very careful to not elevate Christ to God. So I think that's interesting because they literally have a bajillion gods, like so many gods. So the specificity with which they push back on that one aspect, when really they're just like add a god, normally is very interesting. But let's go ahead and look at the conversion tactics that they actually have. And it's more than conversion. They want them to denounce and then on the spot go through a ritual to denounce Christ, despite what this propaganda piece says.
Violence against Christians has been on the rise in India ever since the Hindu Nationalist Party, the BJP, came to power in 2014. TW correspondent Adil Bhatt traveled there to document the religious tensions and witness efforts by right-wing nationalists to push conversions to Hinduism.
These Hindu nationalists are on a mission. They're on their way to meet a local man who converted to Christianity some years ago.
We oppose conversion to Christianity. If people convert to Christianity, then in such a situation, our ancestral traditions, our gods and goddesses, our land will be ruined. And after our culture is destroyed, we won't be able to live in those conditions.
And they are determined to undo it.
Why did you leave your Hindu faith to become a Christian?
I was very sick. Christian missionaries came here and stayed for a few days to treat me. That's when I became a Christian.
So the local politician and his men are taking action. The group say they have converted a dozen Christian families to Hinduism in the past month. Duri Beti belongs to India's Adivasi community, many of whom live as Christians. They're a thorn in the eye of the Hindu nationalists. Duri tells us off camera that today's visit is not the first by right-wing Hindu groups. He says he has faced pressure for months to return to what they call his original faith. It's a part of a wider crackdown on religious freedom in this part of India, as the son of a late Christian pastor can attest. The current crackdown on Christians is concerning and new, says the pastor of the region's oldest church.
There used to be no fighting here. There were no sectarian tensions. But now the Christians are being made to feel that they don't have a right to live here. People live in fear. And the Hindu right wing are snatching away their rights.
When Ramesh Baghel lost his father last year, he made arrangements to bury him in the village cemetery, like all his ancestors. But on that day, he says villagers and local authorities blocked the funeral. They even restrained him from burying his father on his privately owned land.
All of this is happening because of this campaign to make India a Hindu nation. Several Hindu priests have visited our state and openly urged our chief minister to close down churches here.
Ramesh appealed to local authorities and he even went to court.
I beg you, please give me some place to bury my father.
But it was to no avail. Today, Ramesh's father lies buried 25 kilometers away from his ancestral home. Ramesh Baghel takes comfort in the fact that he still has his Christian faith. Many others had to give it up. Back in Durivati's village, under the watchful eyes of the local BJP leader, a traditional convergence ceremony gets underway. A Hindu priest splashes Duri with sacred water, a ritual to purify Duri's soul of his perceived sins. The Hindu nationalists call it a homecoming.
Today you have finally been converted back to your original faith.
Durivati is now officially a Hindu, whether he wants it or not.
There are parts in India where there is absolute freedom, and then there are parts in India where Christians are not free to practice their faith. Attacks happen almost on an everyday basis. We've been monitoring these attacks, I'm talking about the Evangelical Fellowship of India, since 1998. Yesterday, we registered 5 attacks. This morning, there was an information of another attack in the same area where you made that documentary. So attacks happen on an everyday basis. Earlier, we were told you stay inside your churches and you do whatever you want. I'm talking about the late 1990s. Now we are not even safe in the sanctity of our own homes. Birthday parties are being attacked. A casual visit to a friend's house can end up in the police station. Things are bad and getting progressively worse so.
They demonize Christians, and they don't want people converting to Christianity. Now, having worked with for many years, for, 15, 20 years of my life, I actually worked with people from India. People, not first generation, although one of the guys was first generation. Everybody else was like from India. And we used to talk religion, and they would be like, I believe in Jesus. Like, I believe in Jesus.
When I met Samuel, he did share the faith with me. He shared the gospel with me. But at that time I said, yeah, I can follow Jesus as well. There are 33 million gods in the Hindu faith. And I can add one more. I can add one more. No harm in it.
We believe he was a prophet. We believe he came, to India and he learned some ways. This is what they believe. Look, they have so many gods. So many gods.
These cows tomorrow will be an essential part of the celebration. Holy, godlike figures, right?
Yes. That is why they are in a hurry today.
Why are they in a hurry?
They are in rush. They are going to...
They have lots of work to do.
Yeah, they have lots of work to do.
Happy Diwali. I'm here for Gorehaba. Yes. I came from Texas to see Gorehaba.
Oh, welcome.
Gorehaba, yes. Why did they start doing it?
They actually found in this place, there was a lot of cow dung here. And one day suddenly they found an idol of a lord here.
In the poop?
In the cow dung. So the Bireshwara is the name of the temple, and it is believed whosoever will play that festival, any problem, skin disease, they will be getting cured. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes. They believe their god also originated from the cow dung. So the cow dung is like a blessing. That is why they believe using that cow dung, it heals, gives them prosperity and blessings. They believe if you participate in the festival, if you have any wish, and if you're not granting a child, so the Lord will fulfill your wishes.
And believed to have purifying and sanctifying properties. Many people smear it inside their homes to purify the space, and it's believed that the goddess Lakshmi herself resides within it.
Do you want to say anything about Gorehaba?
Yeah, bro, this is like a festival we are celebrating around 300 years back. Like Our god, the Ramaswamy, is born from this cow dung, so we are celebrating this.
Okay, are you nervous?
No.
You're excited?
I'm excited. This is not first time for me. I'm playing for 16 years.
Okay. And have you witnessed any healing miracles? Have you seen anyone be healed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miracles.
1, 2, 3. Happy Goramba!
They really don't have a problem absorbing another god. It's just another version. And mind you also, and this is not something that I learned recently. I learned it way back when I started working with these guys, that they only believe in one God. Now, as somebody who is not a Trinitarian, now I do believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I do believe that God, he manifests himself to us in those three ways, as God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, right? That the Holy Spirit is God dwelling in us. Like when God dwells in you, we call that having the Holy Spirit, right? When God manifested in the flesh, which is the language that the Bible uses, that is Jesus Christ, right? He had the fullness of God, meaning his spirit was fully God. Whereas I have a spirit, the spirit of me. When my spirit leaves my body, we call that dying, right? But I can also have the Holy Spirit, right? That's when God dwells in me. Whereas Jesus, it was just the fullness of God's spirit. That was the only spirit in his body. The spirit animating his body was the fullness of God. And that's why we call him God, right? We're not talking about the flesh and blood body, because this is just a vessel. We're talking about the spirit, right? The life that was in him, the thing that animated his body, that spirit, that life inside of us that we call a spirit, that was fully God. That's what the Bible teaches. And I believe that Jesus was also the Word of God, that when God spoke, his actual words created things. Like if I spoke and my words could create things, it would be the word of Irene, right? But there's no separation. And God the Father is just that whole spirit. Not when God's spirit is indwelling in you, not when we're referring to the Spirit of God dwelling in Jesus Christ, but when we just talk about God whose spirit fills the earth. But to be clear, there's only one spirit. One spirit that has the ability, according to Psalms, to be in all places at all times. One spirit that fills our whole planet, right? Beyond our comprehension. Great is that mystery. But one spirit. One God, one spirit, right? So I'm not a Trinitarian. This 3 persons, 3 essences, what is it? 3 persons that are distinct and separate, and God is not, and the Son is not. No, I don't believe God is not. I believe the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are one. They're not in one, they are one. And so I'm not a Trinitarian for that reason. So I don't have to glitch out because I was not raised Trinitarian. I don't have to glitch out when these people say, I want to be clear why I broke that down. I don't have a spiritual glitch when those people say we only worship one God.
I don't know. I guess I just don't understand why I guess a polytheistic ideology would support some sort of, I guess, monotheistic perspective which Christianity is. So I guess I'm wondering why you have Christian values in that way.
Sure. Happy to address that. What's your name, sir?
Liam Birmingham.
Liam. So tell me about what you know about Hinduism.
Hinduism is a polytheistic religion that.
So with due respect, I'll just cut in right there because there's one thing I have a little bit of authority on. I'm actually a monotheist. I believe there's one true God. It's from the Vedanta tradition of Advaita philosophy, not stuff that we need to spend a ton of time here on. But since you asked about it, I wanted to address it. I believe there's one true God. Now, let me just ask you, because I know that may be a hard thing to process. What's your faith?
I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Great. Do you believe in the Holy Trinity? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?
I think a lot of people here do. So
Good. And that doesn't make you a polytheist, does it?
Probably not, no.
Great. Because I think this is it's a great spiritual question. There's good dialogue here. Is every religion has its reconciling of the one and the many. And so in my faith, I believe there's one true God. He resides in all of us, and he appears in different forms, but it's one true God. So I'm an ethical monotheist. That's the way I would describe my faith. So I'll be very honest. It's not a hard question at all. So in our faith tradition, Jesus Christ is a Son of God. I know that is different than saying he's the Son of God. But that is my view of Jesus Christ. He's got our family. Do we worship in churches? Yes, we do. Is that compatible with our faith? Yes, it is. It's one true God in many forms. So that's different, and I understand that.
That is different. The only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ.
I think that is the path. That is a path to heaven is the way we look at it. But belief in God is what we say. Yeah. Belief in the one true God. That's
who has many different forms. How is that different than the Trinity? That's not an issue I have because I don't believe in the Trinity. It's not even a thing. Right? But they really don't want conversion. They don't. And they hate the idea of converts. So there is some dishonesty in Vivek. And I'm going to say this too. While freedom of religion, in the way that all men are created equal, did not mean black people. It only meant European whites. It didn't mean Native Americans when they wrote it. But we've expanded the meaning to apply to black people. To apply, not really to Native Americans unless they want it because they have their own reservation land. But, we've expanded the meaning to qualify for more than just white people. Freedom of religion was never meant to, never in a bajillion years were they thinking of like Muslims and Hindus. It just wasn't what they were thinking. They were really thinking about the protecting of the church itself, right? And preventing the weaponization. Remember, they were fleeing persecution, many of them. So freedom of religion has been taken to this extreme. I personally am not against the United States being a Christian country, but because men are wicked, we'd likely see much of what we see in Muslim countries or in these examples from Hindu countries where non-Christians would be persecuted. But honestly, I think America was founded as what was supposed to be a Christian country, and I would like to see us function as a Christian country. I would love to see it. I don't think I'll see it, but I would love to see it. And to that end, because I am Christian, I don't think non-Christians, yes, I'm going to say it, I don't think they should be able to be president. I don't. And I don't know if I feel this way, but I low-key think I do. I've never thought about it before, sitting here opining with you. I'm not sure that non-Christians should be able to hold public office. Like if I had my druthers, right? If I could pick and choose, you definitely couldn't be president. Could you hold public office? Probably not. You know what? I'm just going to keep it 1,000. So maybe don't elect me for president, right? Or queen. Don't elect me for queen. But that said, let's go ahead and get back in this video. Okay, by the sound of my voice, I think you can tell that I've recorded this video over a good period of time. I'm still a little under the weather, but I am positive that I do not sound as sick as I did and as congested as I have for the past 2 hours. I could really go on about this subject. I have a lot of material, a lot of ways I could expand the conversation. But I think that our vice president sort of said it best. So I'm going to end this video the way that I started it.
Sorry, what?
May I continue on that? Because when you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world. It's to look out for the people of the United States. Now, I want to make a final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to be respectful to all the people behind you in line, but I want to make this point about immigration, okay? If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened over those 40 years? The many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture.